Welcome, everyone. This morning, we're fortunate we have one of our Explorers teachers here, Grace, too, and Brelly and Mark, who will explain all the ins and outs of the Explorers program. So I'm going to turn it over to them. And thank you for being here this morning. We know this isn't our usual where we can see people in person, but hopefully you'll get a feel for everything that's going to happen and you'll have some good questions. So am I turning it over to Brelly first?
Mark.
Mark. Okay, Mark.
Thanks,
You
Debbie.
go for it. You're welcome.
And good morning, everyone. And some of your faces look familiar when we did the Explorer online information session. So it's good to see you back. And thanks for joining us this morning. And I'll just briefly open. I'm a person that likes to kind of look back and see what we were doing a year ago. And a year ago, we were knee deep in online learning after the governor had said all schools needed to go to online learning. And soon, of course, it came down that we were going to be with online learning for the remainder of the year. And so that sent us on a very different journey for our students and for our faculty and administrators. And soon after that decision came was we started looking at what's school going to look like this fall. And of course, nobody knew at the time. And so we started down a path of a 7 scenario setting. With the best scenario, we were all in school with no restrictions. And the worst scenario was we could only be 100% online. And so we started tweaking and spent the summer working on all these. And we ended up with, I'm proud to say, we started in the lower school with 100% of the students, and we've been able to continue that all year. And it was a commitment. And the reason I share this is because we know how important. One of the things early on in online learning we realized was that kids in lower school, and I would argue that probably middle and upper school as well, learn best in school. And you can replicate some of the curriculum, you can replicate a few things, but the interactions, the relational part of it is just something that you just can't do in online learning. And so the school made a huge commitment, and that commitment was we went from 28 homerooms classes to 45. And so we added 17 new sections. And Grace, I'm sure will mention today, but our Explorer class are between 5 and 6 students each. So they are very small class sizes. And that's because early on they were saying that this was the size we needed. Our average is 10. And so we have throughout the lower school. And so that was a commitment on the school that we knew that the best way kids learn in the lower school and middle and upper school is being in person. And so we're very proud that the teachers have done an incredible job of helping the students stay safe. We've instituted all sorts of protocols and things inside the building and outside the building. And it's as of now, we're very happy to report that we've had everybody here all year, except for a couple of pods that had to go on quarantine early on in the year. So our commitment to you is that we do everything we can in the best interest of children. And even though this was from a logistical, financial, all sorts of metrics that we would use, we knew that deep down, the best thing was for these kids to be on campus every day. And so that is something that you'll always know about Academy being new here, is that we're looking at what's the best decision for kids, what's going to make their learning the most impactful. And this is just one of many examples. And you'll learn, if you're new family, you'll learn that here. So I'm gonna quit talking and turn it over to Brelly Fahrenkopf. And Brelly is the associate head of lower school and also the director of our early childhood program. So thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're really glad you could join us today. I wish you could be here in person on campus. Hopefully next year we'll be able to do some of these meetings in person, because getting to see the kids and the teachers in action is really where you see the magic happening. And trust me, the magic is still happening this school year. We are really lucky to have Grace Gordon with us this morning. She is the team leader for the Explorers program. We currently have 6 lead teachers in the Explorers program. Next year, we're hoping to be back into our normal setting with two lead teachers and an associate teacher in each classroom. But it's just been amazing to see the way the teachers and the students have adapted to our situation this year and really made the most of it. There's so much fun and laughter and learning and joy in our Explorer classrooms. And we're excited that you're going to be a part of it and that your child will be too. So I'm going to turn things over to Grace, and Grace is going to kind of give you a general overview of the Explorer program, and then we will be happy to answer your questions afterward. And I think there is a chat function available too. So if something pops up while you're listening, feel free to pop a question into the chat. Or Grace, I have a feeling Grace will be open to just kind of pausing in the moment and answering questions on the fly too. So, all right, Grace, gonna turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brelly. I first just want to say I'm so excited to be here. I feel like with the pandemic, I feel like I've really gotten to know my students' families this year, kind of on a deeper level than I ever have in the past. And so I'm excited to get to know all of you over the course of kind of the next year, the next school year. So thank you all so much for being here. And like Brelly said, feel free to pop a question in the chat. If Brelly or Mark, if you guys could tell me if there's a question in the chat, that'd be great. Or feel free to just interrupt me and just ask your question. So I made a presentation to kind of go over some of the kind of the overview of the Explorers program and to hopefully answer some kind of frequently asked questions, some common questions that we get. So here we go. Okay, so I just want to start with kind of the foundations of the Explorer program. So there's kind of some things that we built the Explorer program on, and one is responsive classroom. Another one is outdoor education, play-focused, emergent, interest-driven kind of curriculum, and then tastings. So I'm going to go through each of those things and explain what each of them means here in just a moment. And we in the Explorers love the quote, "A child's greatest self-control occurs in play," because play is so foundational in all of these different things that we do. So here we go. So responsive classroom. If you are not new to the lower school, hopefully you've heard of responsive classroom before. It is something that we use throughout the lower school. It's a pedagogy, so it's a way of teaching the students. It's a way of speaking to the students. It's a way of communicating. It's a way that we manage our classrooms. And it's also kind of this philosophy that believes that teaching social and emotional skills is just as important as teaching academic skills. And I will say at the Explorer level, we actually hold social emotional skills probably even a little bit higher than we do the academic skills, because that's our goal, is to give them these foundational skills of social emotional kind of learning so that they can then build upon that when they head up to pre-K and really starting to focus on the academics. And so responsive classroom understands that how we teach is just as important as what we teach. So it's kind of like what we say and how we say it matters. So we are very, very intentional with the language that we use in the Explorer program. And then also a part of it, responsive classroom, is we incorporate morning meetings every day, which is a way to kind of foster community, start off the day on the right foot. We are constantly modeling behavior that we expect to see, and then we use logical consequences to help us kind of manage behavior in our classrooms. Outdoor education, which is my passion, is something that is also foundational in the Explorers. So outdoor education kind of encompasses all these different areas that we're trying to help our students grow in. So physical development, there's so many gross motor skills that are kind of happening when we are outside in the woods playing. And I should also mention that outdoor education here at Academy is possible in part because of our campus. We have 231 acres of campus, of land around us, and much of that is this mature Ohio forest, and we are so fortunate to be able to go out there and use that as our classroom. So like I said, there's lots of physical development things happening in terms of running, balancing, jumping, climbing. There's also definitely some fine motor skills. So like just in terms of building up their muscles in their hands so that they can be, proficient writers when they head into pre-K. So like just the other day, I had some kids crushing up some dead tree, which was really cool to see how they were just like smushing it in their hands. I was like, keep working those fine motor muscles. We are also encouraging a growth mindset. So if you're not familiar with that term, it means basically it's this idea that intelligence and skills are not fixed and that we can constantly grow. And so a lot of that is kind of just encouraging the kids to think beyond like obstacles. Like, how do we problem solve? How do we get through this hard time? How do we practice resilience? So that is a huge tenet to the Explorers. Cognitive growth kind of goes hand in hand with the growth mindset. It's problem solving. It's being able to be flexible in our thinking. That's a huge thing at 3 and 4 years old, is the flexibility in our thinking. Risk taking is always happening when we are out in the woods. If a student is climbing, I might be encouraging them. If they're more tentative, I might, be talking to them, and I'm always asking, like, do you feel safe? What's your plan? Where are you going to go next, sort of thing. So we're encouraging them to think, okay, where am I headed? But also at the same time, if a child's doing something that I do not feel comfortable with, I will say, wow, you don't look like I don't feel like you're being safe, because they may feel like they're being safe, but I can say, I don't feel like you're being safe. Please come down so that I can trust you at a lower level, sort of thing. And we're also giving them the tools to take risks. So if a child wants to climb a tree, I will talk them through, okay, where are you going to put your hand? Is that branch as thick as your wrist or thicker? Because if it's not as thick as your wrist, there's a good chance it won't be able to hold you. And also, is the tree alive? If the tree is not alive, it is probably not safe to climb. So we're giving them these tools so that they can make these judgment calls on their own. But definitely at this level, we are helping them along the way, kind of take those risks in a safe way. We are also very sensory rich. So we do a study of our senses where we've connected the senses to different animals. So we have deer ears, where we really study using our hearing. We use dog nose, where we use our sense of smell. Raccoon touch is what we're studying right now. And then owl eyes is just using our sense of sight to explore the world around us. We are also very play focused. This is definitely the thing that kind of ties everything together, is the play focused, emergent, and interest driven curriculum. So the idea is that we're trying to encourage a sense of wonder, and just this understanding that they can follow their interests and learn more, ask questions, and then learn through those questions. So one example of how that played out in our classrooms last year was the school was redoing the field house and the facilities kind of maintenance shed barn area. And so they had to destroy what we had. And so our head of school sent out an email like, oh, this building is going to be destroyed in the next week or so. If you want to come watch the demolition of it, feel free to come out with your students. And so we, of course, took the explorers out and watched this building being taken down. So here, hopefully you guys can hear this if I play this video. If not, it's not the end of the world. It's not super. Okay, yeah, nope, that didn't work. It's just basically a video of this building being torn down and this kid's going, whoa. And so after that, we went back into the classroom and we had all these things out for them that encouraged them to kind of delve into the idea of building and construction. And so we had these cardboard blocks out. And so they built this amazing kind of structure on this table. And I was really impressed with the problem solving that they were doing. They got it crazy high. They were able to build it very, very high. I can't even remember how they solved that problem to get it like built up that tall. And I was also very impressed in this situation with how they work together. There was a lot of students collaborating on this project. And then we have a rule in the Explorers that you are welcome to deconstruct a building that you build, but you have to get consensus or if you're building it with people, or if you're the one like kind of orchestrating it and you're the one that started it, you get to decide when and how it gets taken down. So they got consensus, and then they decided to take down the structure that they built. And that, for 3 and 4-year-olds, tends to be one of the most fun parts of building something. So that was really cool to watch kind of the construction come full circle in our classroom. We also do tastings. Tastings have been really amazing in terms of just the fine motor kind of practical life skills that are happening when we do tastings, because the kids, like you see, are washing the potatoes, they're washing the apples, and then they're peeling the apples. They're stirring the flour and the mixture together. And then we invite them to taste. No one has to taste anything that we make in the classrooms, but it is a piece of risk taking. And it's also a piece of, like, I encourage kids that I know you recognize as picky eaters right away. And I encourage them to use their dog nose to at least smell it. And it's amazing how often you will see picky eaters even just nibble on something that they help to make, just to experience it. I will say with tastings that we've still done them this year, but it's been a lot less just because of COVID. So hopefully we can kind of ramp those back up next year, the tastings, just because there's so much learning that happens in those moments, especially in terms of like science and math, measurement. So, and just again, this kind of feeling of accomplishment when like banana bread comes out of the oven and they get to taste it. So that's a lot of fun for us. These are some books that have helped to kind of shape the way that we view child development at this age. I strongly encourage you to pick up 1 or 2 between now and the beginning of the school year. I think it'll help to understand kind of the decisions that we make and kind of how we do things in the Explorer program. And if you were to just choose one that you were like, okay, I don't have time to read all of these, I'll just choose, like, what's the one that I could focus on? And I would say it's in the bottom left-hand corner. It's the It's Okay Not to Share by Heather Shoemaker. That is an amazing book that we use, like I'm using it on a daily basis in terms of the language that she explains in that book. So definitely encourage you to check that out if you have some spare time this summer. So you might be asking yourself, what does a typical day look like in the Explorer program? And the Explorer program, kind of the bulk of the program happens in the morning. And we'll go over kind of how the day is broken up and what your choices are in terms of enrollment for your students. But each morning we have a morning meeting where we sing songs and do greetings. They also have kind of this free choice time where they can move around the classroom and they can play, and then they can also choose practical life work where they're again working their fine motor muscles and just developing some of these foundational skills that they'll need for academics the next year. We try to spend at least 60% of our morning outdoors. We have co-curricular classes. So every day our students go to one of these classes: PE, music, library, wellness, or art. And then we spend the majority of our mornings playing. So in free play. And so the teachers are not just standing back and being like, okay, play. We are in the thick of it with the students, trying to help them, give them guidance on how we work together kindly with our peers and how we play with other people in a respectful way. And then at the end of the morning, we have a closing circle where we do kind of a gratitude circle where we encourage every day, what are we thankful for, to kind of encourage that positive thinking mindset that we are grateful for what we have in our lives. And then we also, again, throughout the year, incorporate tastings, again, for the foods that maybe our students are not quite familiar with. Okay, there we go. And then in the afternoons, we have lunch. We, unlike other grades, we stay in like our classroom or in the hallway. There's kind of an area where we had lunch last year. So other classes will go to the dining hall. We do not. But we are still provided food by the dining hall. After that, we have rest on these beautiful blue cots right here. And then after rest time, we have a snack. And then we have a little bit of playtime and then closing circle. For rest, you might be wondering, like, what does that sound? What does that look like? And basically it's around an hour and a half to 2 hours of the kids lying down on their cots. We always say they do not have to sleep, but they at least have to rest, and they have to be quiet so that other students can have the option of sleeping during that time. So in terms of your school day options, there are 3. So there's 5 half days where the times are 8 to 11:30 in the morning. And that's, again, that morning that I talked about. And then you can also do, if you're like, I want to do some half days and some full days, you can do 3 full days and 2 half days. So the full days are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the half days are Tuesday, Thursday. Or you can do the 5 full days where it's 8 to 3:15 p.m. And then also you have the option of CASE, which CASE is, there's all these different words. When you come to Academy, you'll learn all these different words. So CASE stands for our after school program. So they will leave our classroom and go to a different classroom with a different teacher. And that happens, that care happens from 3:15 to 6. We encourage families to get involved in our classroom. This year it's looked very different, but we are always encouraging, even if you're allowed to come into the school or not, we encourage you to share your traditions, your culture. We really want you guys to feel like you are a part of our classroom, because you are, and we want to learn from each other. So it's been interesting to be creative with the ways that we involve our families this year. I just wanted to also show a picture of our campus and just how amazing and beautiful it is. These are the colors on here, are the trails that we have in our campus, and our students go on every and all of these trails throughout their time here as an explorer. And then I love this quote, just to kind of, I know in our society, some people are afraid of dirt and mud, but we are the opposite in the Explorers. So this quote kind of sums us up perfectly. It says, "The marks on children's clothes, the pockets filled with sand, the paint in the hair, these are the indicators of architects, artists, and scientists in training. If we worry too much about wet or dirty clothing, we can place a real damper on the spirit of learning and self-discovery." That quote is the Explorers. So yeah, I love that quote. And yeah, and I love just the muddy pictures, because yeah, when you say, no, you can't stop in that puddle, we don't do that in the Explorers. We say, go for it, as long as no one else is going to get splashed that doesn't want to get splashed. We communicate with the parents via Seesaw. So if you're not familiar with Seesaw, I explain it as like a Facebook. It's like a private Facebook for your class, and that we post pictures and we tag you, and then we write little captions to kind of fill you in on what's happening throughout the day. And then the last thing I wanted to say is just things to work on this summer, between now and when kind of August comes around. So we expect our students to be fully potty trained, in terms of they need to be independent in the bathroom. We are not licensed to do diapering. So we as the teachers can say, I can check your bottom if you're having trouble wiping, but I cannot wipe for you. So if there's a wiping situation that happens, I actually have to call the nurses, and the nurses will then call you and tell you how they had to help out. So the hope is that they need to be fully potty trained by the time they enter our program. With COVID now, we ask that students are able to kind of maneuver their masks independently. So that means taking them on independently and then taking them off on their own as well. And then just independence in general. So I talked to a parent right before, like last week, I was like, I'm going to talk to some new parents coming into Academy. What should I let them know? And she said, she was like, everything you kind of like, the culture and the routines you get used to. But she was like, one thing that was especially kind of tricky for her in the beginning of the year was saying, okay, like you can go into the school on your own. So the idea of walking into a school on your own and finding your classroom. There will be that it is teacher supported. It's not like we're like, good luck, kid, find your classroom. We help them find their classroom, but it definitely is. It's a moment where you're like, okay, this is their school. They need to have ownership. And I'm going to say goodbye. And I trust you teachers and to take care of my child. So it's a big jump, especially with COVID. I think before COVID, the parents, you guys were invited in and we had ice cream socials and you guys could see the classroom. And so who knows what's going to happen next year with that. But with COVID, it's definitely, there's definitely some trust that needs to happen in there, which can be a little scary. So just want to give you a heads up with that. And then also in terms of independence, if they want to start trying to put on their own shoes, please give them that time to try and put on their own shoes or try and put on their own coat. And we will work with those skills when they get to us, but having that desire to and not have it be stifled is really awesome. So yeah, so that's kind of all I had. I didn't mention, Mark, you said something about the class sizes. During COVID, they are 5 to 6 students. Pre-COVID, which is again what we're hoping for next year, it was 16 to 18 students per class with 2 lead teachers and 1 associate teacher. Are there any other questions? Anything that came up for you that you wanted to ask?
Just want to say thanks, Grace. That was a super great overview. Really helpful. I think you hit a lot of the key points.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And as we get closer to the start of the new school year, we'll get into some of the nitty gritty about drop off and pick up and all the supplies that the kids may need, like for rest time and extra clothing and outdoor gear and those kinds of things. Were you thinking of something great?
Well, I was going to say, I think I missed one slide, and that was the outdoor gear piece. Thank you for saying that. So outdoor gear is key. I don't know how I missed that slide. But we will send out a gear list that will say exactly what your Explorer needs. So don't buy anything ahead of time because it's very specific. We also provide the students with rain pants. So that won't be on the list. However, there's one caveat. If you find a pair of winter bog boots, so like waterproof insulated bog boots, that you think that your child will fit into starting in the beginning of the year, please go ahead and buy those. That would be the one thing that I would encourage you, because those winter bog, like again, they look like rain boots, but they're insulated. Those are so key for our program to keep the kids warm and dry.
Any other questions? Anything anybody's wondering about?
I know it's hard to kind of predict, but just any general thoughts on kind of what the school's thinking about for the fall relative to COVID and what it may look like, what the different options are. Just a little bit of commentary there might be helpful.
Sure, I can. Yeah, I can. I mean, we're planning, our goal is that we will be out of the pods and back into the traditional classroom structure. So going from 45 homerooms down to 28, 29, depending on numbers. So that's our goal. We can't predict how things will go, of course, and it's kind of reading a crystal ball with how things continue in Ohio. But it seems to be, we expect, for example, there should be vaccinations available for 12 to 15-year-olds. That's the next round coming up. So that would basically take care of all of our 6th through 12th graders on campus. And we've had very few COVID cases in the lower school because of the pods. So we don't expect to be in the pods. But of course, if things were to, suddenly spike and the governor said we need to go back, we did all of our, just so you know, when we were looking at this, we used the American Academy of Pediatrics and we took all of their recommendations, which included filtration. We have it's not the hospital quality, but it's the one grade below that in terms of filtration systems in the school. And we really tried to maintain the physical distancing, which of course is not possible in the Explorers. And that's one of the reasons we had so few in a class, was because, the kids are next to each other. They did a great job wearing their masks, but it's really tough to keep them 6 feet apart, because that's just a concept that's alien to most students and kids, but nearly impossible to maintain with the little ones. So, but that's our goal, is to be back to normal unless we see numbers and recommendations from the CDC and the governor and the American Academy of Pediatrics change or remain as they are right now. We would certainly not. We would follow those guidelines.
Thanks for this great overview. One of the things, so in terms of you, Grace, you talked about the independence and basically trust us, which is great. And I think that those of us who have multiple decades behind us are more used to transitions. Whereas, a 3 or 4-year-old especially with a transition where it's been sort of hunkered down more than would have normally happened, anticipate that getting that the drop off, for example, like we might need to work with our children to sort of get them comfortable being taken by somebody they've never met before. And one of the things I was thinking, so I guess there's a question in there. I'm not quite sure what the question is, but there's a question in there. But also one of the things thought that maybe might also be helpful is, are we allowed to come to campus and walk around on the trails with our kids? Like, obviously we won't go into the building, but say, hey, this is, going to start ushering you in here, and sort of working with them on that, so the surroundings are more familiar. I mean, the cookies for the gift thing went very far in helping our son know more about this. But is that something we can do? What sort of things would you suggest or allow?
Can I speak to the first part? Okay. So Jeff, we dealt with that this past year in the beginning, just because everyone, like you said, was so hunkered down. Now we're talking about even a longer time of being hunkered down. We were super creative in trying to make both the parents and the children feel comfortable. I will say that most of the anxiety about coming into a school and being ushered in by people that they didn't know came mostly from the parents and not as much from the students. There was a little bit of anxiety from the students, but it was minimal, and we got through it pretty fast. So like I said, we're super creative. So we did, if for some reason, kind of the same situation where people were not, like parents were not allowed in the classroom, we met on Zoom, kind of had our virtual ice cream social where the students were on Zoom with us, with their parents. And so we got to tell them, got to meet them. And then we also, the Explorers created like a slideshow where they saw pictures of like, this is what you're going to see when you come in the school. You're going to turn this way and then see this, and then you're going to see this. So it was like this kind of sequential pictures. And then they got to see like, these are all the things in your classroom that you get to play with when you actually get here. So that was helpful. I know based on what Mark has said and what we are all hoping, we all hope that the parents will be able to, that you will be able to walk your child in for ice cream social the night before school starts, so that you can say, this is your classroom. And when you say goodbye at that front door, you say, look for Miss Gordon, look for, this thing on the wall, and then you'll see your classroom right next to it. So that's the hope, but we definitely have been very creative with trying to be like, this is what, it looks like in your classroom. And I will say this year I've done a lot to try and be like, parents, please come be a part of our classroom. Like I've invited parents to be a part of our morning meeting virtually, just so that you guys can hear and see what it sounds like and looks like in our classroom. Because otherwise, you don't know. And so I know that's been hard on some parents, that's for sure.
And can just to speak about how in the past we've launched the Explorer school year is generally kind of an easing in that first week. And so hopefully we can get back to this normal routine of doing our easing in, where the first day that the kids come, it's really just for like an hour, hour and a half. And we have the parents actually stay on campus, and we go and we do like a parent coffee, and we answer your questions. So the parents actually can drop the kids off at the room that first day. And then Mark and I meet with the families while the kids just kind of get acquainted with the room and get acquainted with the teachers, and then go home. And then, so for the first week, it's actually a staggered start. And everybody is staying maybe a couple of hours, or the Friday of that week, we'll send out a detailed schedule. The Friday of that week, the children who would normally be staying all day will stay for lunch, and then we'll kind of get into the full routine the second week of school. And that's our hope, to be able to do that again this year. And I think it's a really, that first day, you want to see the kids, kind of enter the room, and you want to know that they're safe, and the kids kind of have a little sense of security knowing that you're close by too, but they're doing their own thing. So fingers crossed that we'll be able to do that normal routine.
And your question, Jeff, about the trails, absolutely. Come on up and park your car, and maybe we can get the map out. It's a really good question, so you can kind of see. But pretty much, if you just kind of head off into the woods, you'll see some of the kind of natural starts, and there's a creek and things. I would recommend, we have a fairly large summer program, which is called Summer Experience. So you may see kids at that time. So we would probably recommend doing it maybe after 3 o'clock or on the weekends, just so, there may be groups out in the woods. Right now, we have a policy where everybody wears their mask on campus. So you just, even on the trails, just your mask on. But that's a great idea, is to kind of just wander around and enjoy the campus and take advantage of it, because that's a super way of getting kids used to driving up each morning, or and when you come into school.
The outdoors is part of our classroom, so I love that question. It gave me goosebumps.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Any
Aren't
other
any more
questions?
Questions?
If anything comes up, let's see. Is
I
there
think I
a-
see.
There is a question.
Oh, Grace, do you want to talk about the potty routine, how when the kids get to school in the morning? And
That's true. So the question is there a routine to ask kids to go potty every 2 hours? No, that specific routine is not part of our day. We will, when the children come in first thing, we have a morning routine that involves them going potty. Whether they need to in that moment or not, we just say, go ahead and try, sit on the potty. And then the goal is that they are independent enough to know when they need to go potty, and that they can do it on their own. So if there are special situations where we might have to, with a student, do that, but no, that is not like a routine that we do every day with our students.
well, if other questions come up, like as you're thinking about the presentation, later this morning or in the next couple of weeks, feel free to reach out to any of us over email. We're always happy to answer your questions. And then I know we're going to be working to schedule just a general new family orientation, where we'll go over some of that nitty gritty of, the start of the day, and the schedule for the day, and lunches and absences and all of those kinds of nitty gritty sort of things. Anything else that we should add, Debbie or Mark?
I'm just so pleased, your leap of faith in a COVID world, to be at our school, but trust in us that it will be such a wonderful experience for your child. I can't say enough about, especially the independence that kids are gaining. They get their little routine. I listened to one little girl who was out in the hallway, and she said, now look, this is how I do my boots. I put my foot partway in, and then I push and push and push 3 times, and then it goes in. And so you can see that they're you know, they're just little wheels turning. The only thing I can add is sometimes, and maybe you're not confused about this, but it is mandatory to come the 8:05 to 11:30 every day. If you take the 3-day option, you're not just coming those 3 days and not coming on Tuesday and Thursday. We did have that one year where a child wasn't there for a week or so, 2 weeks on Tuesday and Thursday. And the parent thought, well, I signed up for the 3-day. No, that isn't how that works. So if there was any confusion with that. And lastly, I will say, don't wonder about anything. As Bradley said, we're here to answer questions. It's a partnership between all of us. And we don't want you to wonder about anything, especially when we can't be on campus with the kids as much as we would like to be. But we will see how the summer goes, and as things hopefully, knock on something, ease up, we will be able to do more too. But feel free to always contact us. So are we good? Any more questions? If not, we'll wrap this up, and thank you for your early morning time.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks for
everybody.
joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Take care.
Bye.